So, since since we're talking about dreams today, I'm going to share about some more dreams that I had. Actually, I had two. Look at this. Like this, I don't know what's happening with the light. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not really sure what's happening with the light. It's really crazy. Should I restart this? I hate restarting things. I'm just gonna continue. I don't care. Like I have other things that I have to do. Like I'm forced to do those things, so I'm just gonna continue. So anyway, and no editing because I don't have time to edit. God knows I tried. It's just a crazy life situation right now, but I want to talk about these dreams that I had, and God always says, "Be positive, Jubilee. Like you have time." Like okay, I believe you. No, I do believe him. So anyway, when I was a child, well, actually, let me just say it like this. Okay, I'll say it like this. So when I was a child, the Lord took me to heaven, and it was really unexpected. It was so unexpected. But this is the backstory of how I ended up going to heaven for the first time. Because after that, I had another dream where I went to heaven, and then when I became I was an adult at that when I had the second dream. And then as an adult also, I had like this really unique vision, and I saw the throne room of God. It was completely supernatural. It was after a time of doing a lot. I was like worshiping for like 2 hours straight. It was like a really difficult time for me that I was going through. And I got this amazing vision of the throne room. So, which I will talk about later. But I want to talk about what happened the first dream that I had. So the backstory of that is that like so many people, we are from broken homes, and there's a lot of abuse and everything. And so my dad wasn't really in my life. I really treasured my biological father wasn't really in my life, and I really treasured whenever I got to spend time with him. And the backstory of my personal life is that I went through a lot of abuse. A lot of unfortunate things happened to me as a child. And I was forced to strip when I was in 6th grade by a female, which led to the homosexual situation that I was telling you guys about in a different, video, where God supernaturally delivered me of that spirit. And I know it's a spirit, but I'd have to talk about that in a different video. But he's so merciful. He delivered me. And then I ended up getting syphilis from a horrible human being that was living in my home, and I didn't have control over that. And again, I'm in middle school. God healed me of syphilis. He's so wonderful. I was actually healed of an STD, and it was one of my second times praying to God, really, because when he took away the homosexual spirit, and then he healed me of the syphilis, I didn't really know him. The Lord was not really talked about in my home. The only one that was talking about the Lord in my home was the pedophile that was abusing me. So completely a hypocritical human being. I have forgiven him. God cleanses the body, and he cleanses the soul. I don't know where that human being is, and I don't care to know. My pets were murdered in front of me. It was just a really difficult time growing up. And so when I had the opportunity to actually hang out with my biological father, it was such a big deal for me. And so one day he told me that we were going to go to the zoo, and I was so happy. I was ecstatic about that. And so And so, anyway, I just remember that I was looking forward to that for probably the next, I don't know how long it was, 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that. I was looking forward to every day that went by. I was just so looking forward to getting closer to that day. So when the day to go to the zoo actually came, I called him like super early in the morning because I was just I was so ready for this, and it was too early. And he was really upset about that, and he was like, "It's too early, we can't go right now." And so I waited. Then I called again, and he's like, "It's too early." And anyway, I really ran it into the ground. I mean, obviously, like what ended up happening later, like he just stopped answering the phone altogether. And then I guess when we got, several hours later, I was still calling. It was still early morning though. I mean, when I say early morning, like 10, 11 at that point, I'm calling. And eventually my brother that lived with my biological dad answered the phone and said, "Dad doesn't want to talk to you. Stop calling." And I never went to the zoo that day. Yeah. And so anyway, I was so devastated. And I remember that, I mean, I had even chosen the clothes that I was going to wear like days in advance. I was so prepared for that. And I called a prayer line, actually. I called a Daystar prayer line after that happened. And I asked them to pray that my dad would love me. That was my actual prayer. And the funny thing about it is that I found out about Daystar through the pedophile. Isn't that awful? I was like surrounded by hypocrites all of my life. But I called the Daystar prayer line and I asked for them to pray for me. It was a woman that answered the phone, and I asked specifically, "Would you please pray that my dad will love me?" And anyway, she did pray for me, but then she also was talking about, one day he's going to regret that, he wasn't in your life as a child. I mean, I was a kid, so, I mean, I didn't really understand the things that she was saying at that point, but let's continue. So anyway, eventually I started to get closer to God because in those times in my life, I hadn't been preached to about the Lord. And so I heard about the Lord only because people were talking to my relatives about God that were adults, and they didn't know that I was listening. So that's the only reason that I ever found out about God, And then the pedophile, of course, was always talking about God, and he wanted to open up a church. It was just insane. It was a crazy situation. With that being said, as I was trying to get closer to God and get to know him, I wasn't there at that point in my life. I just heard that he existed, and I was really interested to know about like this creator that had made the sun and the moon and everything. But when I was in 9th grade, I really gave my life to Christ. I completely sold out to him. And I decided that I really will serve him for the rest of my life. About a week after I gave my life to Christ, I had this dream. And in the dream, there was this tall person that was in this white robe that completely glowed. It was a very special white light that was coming from this robe that this person was in. I never saw the face of the person. I feel really I feel comfortable with saying that I really believe it was Jesus. And he took me to this place in heaven, and I saw a creature. And the creature I saw does not exist on the earth. It was so interesting because when I saw this creature, it was so weird. Like, I could look in the eyes of this creature and I understood it. And it was so comfortable and satisfied to just live for the existence of God. And also, and it was, well, let me continue. The other thing about it was that it didn't know people. Like, it wasn't aware of people. It's like its only purpose for living was to live for God. It was so comfortable for that. It just existed, just as his creation. And it was so innocent. It was such an innocent creature. It didn't know anything about evil. It was pure. It was like a purely innocent creature. And I've never seen anything like that before in my life. Yeah. And I just remember trying to see like how much information I want to share, but the other thing about this creature that I saw is that, you know how like horses, a lot of them have like a cuff. They have cuffs on their legs of hair, and this creature had cuffs on it. It had cuffs on its extremities, like the legs and the arms, and the cuffs were rainbows. They were like a light. I don't know how to explain. I don't know how to explain it, but it was like a gradient of the rainbow. There was a light gradient of the rainbow on this creature, like the cuffs of the creature. It was really innocent and beautiful. And when I woke up out of the dream, Jesus told me, this is how I know that person had to have been Jesus that escorted me to this heavenly zoo. Because, you know, my biological father never took me to the zoo. So my heavenly father took me to the zoo. And so Jesus told me, he said, I want you to spend more time with my father. That was the only thing he said. Like, I heard him speak to me. It wasn't audible, but when I woke up, I heard that. It was so loud, and it was in my spirit, and he told me, I want you to spend more time with my father. And that was the end of that. and I was like, I will. And so because, you know, it's so strange, but listen, this is my experience, so I don't really care about, you know, anyone's opinion. This is my experience, okay? But this is what Jesus told me, and this is my experience. And when I was younger, like when I first gave my life to Christ, for the first, like, I guess I would say week, because I was barely born again. Like, I was so fresh. I was praying to Jesus, and Jesus is God, and I was praying to Jesus, but he specifically told me, I want you to spend more time with my father. That is my situation. That is my experience. So that was my first dream, and I saw heaven. And it's really interesting because before that happened, before I'd given my life to Christ, I had another really beautiful encounter with the Father.